Country roads, take me home. Let's go on another road adventure. Hello once again. It is Jonathan Miller back with the hometown historian channel. My brain is not computing today, but anyways, it's a slight little bit of rain on and off today. I was supposed to go do a little bit of cleanup work on a small property of one of my friends, but I can't get my feet wet. I can't risk it because that stuff winds up coming back on me. So we're doing a improvised Country Roads Take Me Home. It'll be a little shorter. We're actually going to go in here to Coleman's Park. I've been doing a lot about the Colemans, as of late, and I figured why not continue. It's such a pretty park, and there you see Coleman Memorial Park, and then the gate. I figured let's go for a drive through here because the colors have to be beautiful, and we'll drive around the entire park. So we'll take our good old time and just enjoy the scenery. And I'll mention it said established 1936. We've done a lot of photography out here a couple months ago, and there's some of the guys cleaning up the property with their leaf blowers. They're actually, I think it's two brothers. They were really helpful. Mule Skinner had let me know where the houses that I couldn't find. There was 3 plaques, and the one was sitting right there, but it was sort of hidden by a bush. So he did that second video, and I was like, you know what? Come back through here, and then we'll talk about exactly where the 5 different mansions were. And it had to be, they called it Mount Lebanon, is what the Coleman family called it. It had to be stunning. There was a house right back there. We'll talk about it on the way back. That right there is where the stables were, and then eventually became, as we switched over to cars, it became known as the carriage house. Beautiful, beautiful building. It just actually did a little more restoration on it with the shingling. Some of it had fallen off. But over in this area behind this parking lot, there's a cool stone house here as well. I forget what they call that, but it had its use, whatever that might have been, but that's original. It's one of the 2 structures that still exists here from the Coleman days. But back right over there's a plaque sign. I can see it clearly now because I'm not an idiot, because I've learned where it is. But that right there is where the homestead, which would have been, I believe, the George Dawson Coleman house, really beautiful house, and that was the one that made it to, I think, the 60s, and that was the last one that got torn down. But we haven't driven on these roads with you guys yet. I have, so we'll get to experience this one. I think I drove back on this one. The last time would have been my friends Sarah and Zach got married back here, where one of the houses, the Brock Mansion, I believe, was. But yeah, it's just turn my turn signal off. That way you don't have the clip-clop sound. Which is a beautiful drive. It's unfortunately the leaves are now we're past our prime. I'll still make a couple drives. See some of the colors there. I'll make a couple drives yet. I think though we're going to be past our peak, but maybe be able to get in over the mountain and back again. Maybe the road to Grandpa's house, get that one done. And there's one other one I'd really like to do, but it just only so much time and all that good stuff, and it just sort of is what it is. But we will probably be able to do some snow drives, and then, like I talked about before, last year I wasn't able to do it because of being so sick, but I'd like to do some Christmas light drives, because that was something I always enjoyed as a kid. And then also I'd like to try out a night drive just once, just to see how it looks, and if it turns out great. If not, then not. I probably will continue to do the country roads take me home videos. I will probably continue to do them with my camera phone, because it's just easier. So this is where the Brock Mansion would have been. This is actually where my friends Sarah and Zach got married, right there at the pretty white beams there, whatever you call that, in the gazebo there. But this is where the Brock Mansion would have been. This was the furthest west of the 5 houses, but it's just really, really pretty back here. There are stone steps and whatnot back there, but I'm not going back there because I am beat. I'm lazy, I'm fat, and I'm old, and my body has declared that it's had enough. There are some baseball fields down there, and then you have basketball courts, tennis courts here. Coleman's Park offers a lot. Like, if you're in this general area, it's a cool place to come, do some walking, all that good stuff. It's a really quite a neat place. So now that road's closed for some reason, but you can continue this way. And then here, right in front of us, you'll see a little stone wall, and there's also a really cool modern art piece. This is where another mansion stood, right here. You can look back at the other Coleman videos of whose mansion was here, and then you have that cool thing. Really neat. Is designed by, it was a lady that designed it, and Jared Oderick, who was a player at the Lebanon High School and eventually went to Penn State and then went to the NFL. He actually paid for this piece. I think she's an artist out of Denver, Colorado. I might be wrong on that, and I'll correct it if I'm wrong, but really talented artist. And it's sort of the idea behind it is that as an adult, you're sort of talking to yourself as a child, because we all still have, hopefully in some way, that inner child, and that's sort of the idea behind the art piece, to sort of remember in nature is a good reminder, just life in general, to keep that inner child, that inner joy, a little bit of innocence in there as well, because I think a lot of times life sort of beats the stuffing out of us sometimes, and we forget to find joy in simple things like nature. But really neat art piece. I really, really like that piece. And I'm not an artsy-fartsy guy, but that I find very, very cool. Someplace I would like to take you guys is the Corning glass shop they have up there. Is the museum, I guess. But they have like a factory up there, and they actually do a show on Netflix. I forget, Blown Away, I think it's called. But it's really, really neat what these people are able to do with blown glass. It's just so extraordinary to me. But yeah. But that's a cool show to check out. And they do that show on site with the Corning Glass Museum. But I'd like to take you guys there sometime. I'd like to take you to the town of Elmira. It's another one. Right here is where another house stood. This is the third house, or the fourth, I should say, because we talked about the one that was over there. But there's another one here, and this is one of them that I did on the first Coleman's Park video. This here, the stonework, actually the stones came from that house back there that we just viewed where the plaque is. They made like the gazebo, like the bandstand, I guess you would call it. And the stones are actually from the house. So they did reuse some of the materials from the homes. And down here's where the pool used to be. they eventually had to, just because of liabilities and not having the funding to be able to take care of it, they wound out getting it removed. But there's the steps that used to go down to the pool. It was just a really cool place. But you know, everybody has their own pool. A lot of people have them at least, and you know, but the main one would have been back over there. And then the final house, we're not going to go over to the plaque. Well, maybe, you know what, we will, because it's easier to see where the last one would have been. But we'll drive into the parking lot here, and then we'll go right over where you'll be able to see the plaque that's over here in the corner. I just love that place. It's just such a cool building. The brickwork, the architecture. One of the nicest bathroom windows I've ever seen. Until it was like when I was over at Lidditz Springs Park, which we'll have that video coming out, and maybe it'll come out before this. But that right here is where, see that flat area there? That's where the other house would have been, the fifth house. It was like sort of George Dawson. It was a lot of his daughters, the two Dawson brothers. It was their daughters that had the mansions, the other three mansions, because I think it was George Dawson, I believe Robert Dawson, because they both had the same middle name. It was sort of weird, but they had the houses here in Lebanon because they were running. There's a wall you can see right over there. That was built to sort of knock the noise down a little bit, because they actually had a foundry, furnace operations down below, and the Dawson brothers were running that, I believe. But yeah, a lot of neat history here. Make sure nobody's coming. And the last piece of, or I should say, last building. This is the original gatekeeper's home. Beautiful stone building. And that is also standing. That's now a private home, but beautiful home. I love the old woodwork there in the front. It's just something you don't see anymore. But yeah, it's now a private home, because the gate used to be over here, and then they moved the gate down to Route 72, which is where we're going back out, where the new gate is. And then the house right next door, that's the gatekeepers. Which, let me just quick back up and you can get a little bit of a look here. I'll look here, see, because there's nobody behind me, so we're being safe. That's one of my lights I got to get checked. But here they call it the Homestead Coleman Memorial Park Mini Golf and Visitor Center. But that's what the homestead originally looked like. That one that was in the very middle of the park, that's what it would look like. That was the one that got torn down in the 60s. It is such a shame, because you wish that the money would have been there for the city to be able to take care of it, because it's really, besides like Coleman's Park, you know, a couple of the Coleman Memorial Chapel over in Brickerville, and the that's the park house for the people that caretake for the park. But it really is a shame. There's just not much with Coleman namesake anymore. You have the other Coleman Chapel that was across from the home that was built for Ann Coleman. That one, the current structure is from the 1880s. Now, whether the entire place got razed, which I said in the video that I put out today, it sounds like only the foundation of the front of the Inn 422, which is now Masago Bistro. But that's the only thing that probably remains from the original house. I sort of took it originally from what I had read, that part of the house still remained, but it sounds like it's just a foundation. But that was sort of common practice when they had a tragedy in the Coleman family. They would take down, you know, Robert Habershon Coleman, after his wife passed away. They'd only been married a couple years, but she had really poor health. He tore down both the mansions, neither of which ever got completed. Which might have played a role into it, why he tore them down, because they weren't completed, and just the thought and the memory of loving his wife so much, and her not being able to share that home with him was too much. I don't know. So nobody really knows in that regard. And it's the same thing with the Ann Coleman home. I'm sure there's a certain amount of information, but when exactly it got torn down, because it doesn't make sense to me that, you know, they built the new place in 1880 and that they just basically, the foundation had been sitting there for 60 years. If they tore it down right after she died, it doesn't make sense to me. But sometimes trying to find that information, or trying to find information that's actually legit and true in actual history, it's sort of hard to separate, you know, what's true and what got confused or made up. You know, who knows. But with that, I'll say thanks for coming along, taking this little road trip through Coleman Park, talking a little bit about the mansions and the people and the Coleman family. And as I've said before, we will be eventually doing a video series on the Coleman family, starting with each, you know, with the first generation, which would be Robert and Ann Coleman, and then going on to their children and talking about that. So as always, I want to say thank you for coming along, and we will see you all about town.